I'm often asked, what is my favorite Bible verse? Well, to be frank, I don't really have a favorite Bible verse. There's a lot of passages of Scripture that are really meaningful to me. A lot of passages of Scripture I find fascinating. One of them is Genesis 1:2. This is a passage of Scripture that is part of the Genesis 1 creation account. So let me set the context for Genesis 1:2. We know, of course, in Genesis 1:1 that the text says, "In the beginning God creates the heavens and the earth." And that phrase, heavens and earth, is translated from the Hebrew expression shamayim aretz, which means the totality of creation. So in the beginning, God created everything that exists. And it's remarkable that science has discovered that our universe has indeed had a beginning, just as Genesis 1:1 describes. Well, Genesis 1:2 is just as remarkable in terms of its scientific accuracy. Genesis 1:2 is setting the stage for God's work as creator that will transpire in 6 successive days of creation, where the first 3 God is essentially transforming the earth to make it suitable for life. The next 3 days, God is filling the earth with different life forms. Genesis 1:2 tells us that the earth was formless and empty, that darkness covered the surface of the deep, and that the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And so the text tells us that, first of all, the frame of reference to understand Genesis 1:2 is that as a hypothetical observer on the surface of the earth, looking outward and looking upward, because the Spirit of God is on the surface of the earth. We're not looking down on the earth, we're on the surface of the earth as hypothetical observers. And we would see darkness everywhere. We would see that the earth is a water world. And this is indeed scientifically correct. We now understand that in the very early stages of the earth's development, that the earth would be dark everywhere on its surface. Why? Because the earth would have formed with a very thick primordial atmosphere. There would have been a high level of interplanetary dust and debris that would prevent sunlight from reaching the surface of the earth. We know that the earth very early on was a water world and that continents didn't form until much later in Earth's history. We also see this expression in Genesis 1:2 that the earth was formless and empty. Now, this is a very hard expression to translate from Hebrew into English. It's tohu wabohu in Hebrew, and in Deuteronomy 32, that expression is used to describe a howling waste. In in Isaiah 45:18, it's used to describe an uninhabited wasteland. In Jeremiah 4, it's likewise used to describe, again, a wasteland that has no life in it. And so that the early earth in its initial stages was also a place of desolation. And again, this is scientifically accurate. We now know that in the early Earth's history, it would have been pummeled with impact events that would have rendered the earth a magma ocean. Now, shortly after these impact events end, let's say about 4.2 billion years ago, the earth winds up having a crust as a permanent feature. Oceans become a permanent feature, but that quiet is then interrupted by another wave of impactors called the late heavy bombardment, which would have rendered the earth again a magma ocean where all the water on the surface would have been turned into vapor, into steam. So in other words, the earth was also a place that was tohu wa bohu based on our scientific understanding. So it's remarkable to me that Genesis 1:2 precisely describes the conditions of the early earth as we now know them to exist from scientific investigation. The question is, how would Moses, who is attributed as the author of Genesis 1, how would Moses know this? How would Moses have that scientific insight if it wasn't through divine inspiration? If you want to know more about the scientific accuracy of Genesis 1:2, I would recommend a book to you called Origins of Life, co-authored by Dr. Hugh Ross and myself.